Doctor Who Story by Story. Earthshock Review. Just the facts. Earthshock was a 4-part Doctor Who story that was the 6th and penultimate story in the show's 19th season, broadcast twice weekly from the 8th to the 16th of March 1982. It starred Peter Davison in his first season as the 5th Doctor, accompanied by his companions Adric, Nyssa, and Tegan, played by Matthew Waterhouse, Sarah Sutton, and Janet Fielding. The serial was written by the series' new script editor Eric Saward and produced by John Nathan Turner in his sophomore season in that role. The story was directed by Peter Grimwade, who had previously directed the season 18 Tom Baker stories Full Circle and Logopolis, and would go on to write 3 serials for the Peter Davison era of Doctor Who: Time Flight, the story that aired immediately after Earthshock, Season 20's Mordrin Undead, and Season 21's Planet of Fire. Incidental music was composed by Malcolm Clarke, who had previously composed the decidedly unusual incidental music for the Season 9 1972 Jon Pertwee story The Sea Devils, and who would go on to provide scores for 2 more Peter Davison stories, Season 20's Enlightenment and Season 21's Resurrection of the Daleks, and 3 Colin Baker stories, Season 21's 6th Doctor debut tale The Twin Dilemma, Season 22's Attack of the Cybermen, and Season 23's Terror of the Vervoids. Plot. The Doctor and his companions arrive at the scene of a massacre of an archaeological team in a cave system on a future Earth. Initially suspected of being the culprits by an investigating military unit, the true culprits are soon revealed in the form of deadly androids. But the androids are merely servants of a far greater enemy, the Cybermen, who are intent on destroying the Earth and will go to any lengths to achieve their goal. Guest cast. There is an impressive guest cast assembled for Earthshock, including noted actress and comedian Beryl Reid as freighter Captain Briggs and James Warwick, perhaps otherwise best known to genre fans for his role in the sci-fi horror drama series The Nightmare Man, which was written and directed by Doctor Who alumni Robert Holmes and Douglas Camfield. Briggs' second-in-command Berger is played by June Bland, who would appear in a different role as a blind woman in the 1989 7th Doctor story Battlefield. The story also sees the first appearance of David Banks as the Cyber Leader, a role he would make his own and appear in 3 more times during the 1980s, in the 20th anniversary special The 5 Doctors in 1983, Attack of the Cybermen opposite Colin Baker's Doctor in Season 22 in 1985, and against Sylvester McCoy's 7th Doctor in Silver Nemesis in the 25th anniversary season in 1988. Trivia. The serial is notable for a number of surprises, or shocks as the story's title suggests. The first is of course the return of the Cybermen after 7 years away from television screens. The return of these iconic monsters, that had not been seen since Revenge of the Cybermen in Tom Baker's first season back in 1975, was kept a surprise by producer John Nathan Turner, who even turned down the prospect of a Radio Times cover in order to preserve the secrecy of the monster's return, a scenario that seems almost impossible to imagine today. JNT even went so far as to close the public gallery that overlooked Television Centre's studio floor to prevent the general public seeing the monsters and the secret getting out. The other big shock of the story is of course the death of Adric, which marks the first time that a long-running regular companion of the Doctor was killed in the series, the final episode credits playing out in a kind of stunned silence in a moment that has again never been done in the series either before or since. The story was novelized by Ian Marter, who had played companion Harry Sullivan in the early years of the Tom Baker era, in 1983 and released on video in 1992. The serial was later released on DVD in 2003 and re-released in 2013 as part of a box set called The Doctors Revisited Volume 2, which followed up an earlier release of a single story from each of the first 4 Doctors, plus a documentary about those Doctors' eras that was originally shown on BBC America as part of the show's 50th anniversary celebrations, to represent the 5th Doctor, alongside Vengeance on the Rose, Remembrance of the Daleks, and the TV movie to represent the 6th, 7th and 8th Doctors, and is unique in being a feature-length version of the story displayed in a widescreen format. In 2012, an audiobook version of the novelization, read by Peter Davison himself, was released by AudioGo. Reaction: Earthshock was and remains a massively popular Doctor Who story. Peter Davison cites Earthshock as one of his 3 favorite serials from his time in the program. The dramatic story was a big hit with audiences, scoring over 9 million for 3 of the 4 parts and just under 9 million for Part 2, and is the only story of the John Nathan Turner era to include all episodes within the top 50 programs on TV for the week of broadcast. In the 1997 survey of fandom's favorite stories ever in the official Doctor Who magazine, the story came in 17th place. In the 50 Years poll conducted in 2013, after the advent of the new series, Earthshock came in 24th place overall and was also judged to be the 3rd best story of the 1980s, coming in only behind the massively popular 7th Doctor story Remembrance of the Daleks and the 5th Doctor Regeneration story The Caves of Androzani. Despite occasional fan criticism regarding possible plot holes and some fan quibbles over the casting of Beryl Reid in the role of Briggs, the popularity of Earthshock remains undiminished some 36 years after its original broadcast. What I think. I used to love Earthshock as much as the next fan, though I feel I must confess that over the years my enthusiasm did begin to rather pall. The simple reality of the situation is that I just plain overwatched the story, which resulted in later viewings simply not engaging me as much as it had done in the past. But wait. I come with good news. After not having watched Earthshock for a good 6.5 years, I actually threw it on kind of unexpectedly just a couple of weeks before Christmas 2017, largely out of desperation after turning off some Tennant rubbish I can't sit through anymore. Random New Who bashing moment that and found myself loving the story all over again. After this recent reviewing, Earthshock has once again rocketed up in my estimations and my favorite story list, and only served to further cement my opinion that I'll take 80s Doctor Who over the 21st century version any fricking day of the week. I still don't understand the fan whining over Beryl Reid either. There seems, frankly, to be a complete misunderstanding of the nature of the character from those doing the complaining. Briggs isn't supposed to be a Sigourney Weaver Ripley from Aliens type, despite what some claim. She's a bitchy middle-aged freighter captain, the futuristic equivalent of a truck driver, who's just trying to get home with her payload in time and get paid. Reid is great in the role, and has some deliciously wicked and acidic one-liners. All in all, Earthshock has regained its place in my affections, and I have zero hesitation in awarding it a straight A.